So the world of Borderlands has been pretty quiet lately, and I thought why not make a video about the top 5 DLCs that we have so far for Borderlands 3. But just because the content stopped, it doesn't mean that new people aren't coming to the game. A lot of people are still buying it, and a lot of people are still confused about which one is the best DLC. So, my name is Ganyan, thank you for stopping by, and today I'm gonna be ranking my top 5 DLCs for Borderlands 3. As always, if you enjoy the video, consider liking and sharing it. It really helps out the channel, especially now because I don't upload as much as I used to before, and YouTube just buries the channel if I don't upload daily. And it's really helpful, so thank you. Also keep in mind, this is all my opinion, so you might agree, you might disagree, let me know down below in the comments. And with that being said, let's get into my least favorite DLC for this game. If you've watched any of my other videos, this won't be a surprise for you. In the last place I have Psycho Krieg and the fantastic Fustercluck. I think a lot of people agree with me that this DLC came with a lack of content a lot more serious than any other of the DLCs we had before. I understand, because of the current situation it's hard to develop stuff, but still, we had no new enemies. We had one new enemy, the Psycho that flies on a rocket. We have a couple of bosses, but not that many places to fight these bosses. We have only 3 maps to fight in, and Valhalla, which is half a map, it's just basically a boss fight. So we have only 3 places to go to. Inside the mind of a Psycho, it has a lot of potential, and they didn't use that potential. They just made 3 generic kinda looking maps. One of them has blood in it, that's not that creative. Another one has a flying train, which is cool, but still it just has Vorkids, which we've fought for like a million years now, so that's also not that creative. And all in all, the DLC itself just feels like a reskin and a rehash for everything that we've had before. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the DLC is bad. We had a lot of good loot with this DLC. The story was pretty good, it didn't last long, it was only 4 hours, but what they did with those 4 hours was pretty great, I enjoyed it. I like to see that Krieg is back and he's still part of the story of Borderlands, so that was fun as well. And it's really cool to have more dialogue with the characters that we know and love, Lilith, Mordecai, Brick, all of that stuff, and backstory for them. But with all of that said, I still couldn't get rid of the feeling that this could have been a lot more. It could have been a lot more interesting, a lot more fun, with a lot more enemies, with a lot of other stuff that they could have added. We have no Circles of Slaughter, we have no new enemies. We have just 3 maps which are not that interesting if you compare it to other DLCs that we finished other games with. For example, the Tiny Tina DLC, or the Collaptastic Voyage, or General Knox's DLC. They all had more content, well, maybe except General Knox's DLC, but we had more content in the Tiny Tina DLC and in the Collaptastic Voyage. Don't get me wrong, it's not that bad of a DLC, it's just very disappointing in my eyes because I expected a lot more from the final DLC of the first year of Borderlands 3. Especially if, like I've said, you compare it to other final DLCs that we've had before. It's hard with the time that we live in, I understand, but it doesn't make it any less disappointing. In the number 4 place, I have Moxxi's Heist on the Handsome Jackpot. It's the first DLC that we got for this game, and it was really a good start for the DLC season. I thought that all the DLCs are gonna be much worse than this one, but turns out it's in the 4th place, so I enjoyed 3 DLCs more than this one. And that just speaks to how much I enjoyed the other DLCs, that I put them higher than this one DLC. This one adds all the stuff that we had in Borderlands 2, the loader bots, Handsome Jack, Corrosion, and a lot of the stuff that we missed in Borderlands 3, and it removes Ava, so if you hated her, that's good. The main location that this DLC takes place in is the Handsome Jackpot, which is a casino in space. It's owned by Hyperion. It's one of the most interesting places that we've seen in the Borderlands series. It's full of Hyperion robots, Hyperion propaganda, and people that you would expect to see in Hyperion, like Pretty Boy and all the other characters that you will see in the DLC. And they brought back Timothy, who was a character from the pre-sequel, in case you didn't know. He's the doppelganger for Handsome Jack. He's one of my favorite Vault Hunters of all time, but they made him a little too weak, which I don't understand. But still, it was good to see him. The loot that you get in this DLC still stacks up compared to DLC 5 loot and all the other DLCs. The Ion Cannon is one of the most fun launchers to use in the game. Seeing Dead class mod is one of the most fun class mods to use in the game. The bosses that you farm are really fun to fight, especially the final boss. He's one of my favorite bosses in the whole game. He has some immunity faces, but they are not too annoying. The story centers around Moxxi and, well, her heist of the handsome Jackpot. It's interesting enough to let you play through it and make you interested to fight the final boss. Moxxi herself is a little more annoying than usual, and I don't understand some of the story beats that they added. For example, at some point it's revealed that there's a whole Hyperion army inside the casino, and they just forget about it 5 minutes later. So what happened with that? They just set it up that there's a whole army that could take over the galaxy, and I have no idea what's gonna happen with that, and now Moxxi has it, so... But other than some story problems, this DLC has everything that you need in a Borderlands DLC. New enemies, new loot, fun locations, interesting story. You can't go wrong with this DLC. It was a great start for the game, and it's a great way for you to get into the game. My third favorite DLC for Borderlands 3 is Bounty of Blood, A Fistful of Redemption. It's the third DLC that we got for the game. It takes place on Gehenna, which is a western style of planet, and it's a western style of DLC. It has all the classic characters that you would see in a western, like the sheriff, the classic bad guy who kills the sheriff, the revengeful character, all of that stuff that you know and love from western movies. All of it is in here. They also have great locations with great enemies. There are no new enemies, but there are mixes of enemies that we've had before. So we have bandits on dinosaurs, and that kinda counts as a new enemy. It's not really a new enemy, but still it's better than the usual enemy that we have in the game. So it kinda feels as new. But the main reason why this DLC is so high on the list is because the loot you get from it is really good. A lot of the weapons that you get from this DLC are really overpowered and really fun to use. The Light Show is still my favorite pistol in the whole game. It's a mini Monarch. If you ever use the Monarch, you know what I mean. Also, I forgot to mention, we have 1 or 2 new types of enemies other than the bandits and the dinosaurs I've talked about. Some of them are like horse, unicorn thingies which shoot elemental bullets at you. Other ones are flying psychos. There's a lot to see in this DLC. They added interactions between you and the environment. You can find plants that if you shoot will turn enemies against their allies and they will become your ally. They added boosters like we had in the pre-sequel, so you can fly to spaces, and it makes the exploration much more fun and much more interesting. By the way, the exploration and the way that this place looks and feels is really great. You're gonna see a lot of interesting locations. We have 4 new places and a boss fight arena, so that's almost 5, and they're all fun to fight through. All of them have different enemies in them, so you're not gonna get bored anytime soon with this DLC. The story of the DLC is really interesting. It's just like any other western movie you've seen. It's basically one bad guy shoots the sheriff and you have to avenge the sheriff and save the town. It's really classic and really cliche, but it's fun because this is Borderlands and you're shooting stuff, and it's always fun to shoot stuff, especially in a western movie. So you're gonna have fun with the DLC if you enjoy movies. I like the locations and the references to other movies in this DLC. They have a Jurassic Park reference, which I especially enjoyed, and they have a lot of other hidden Easter eggs that you're gonna have to find. One major nitpick that I have with this DLC though is the combat music. It can get really annoying really fast. Other than that, the soundtrack is amazing. All the locations have different soundtracks which sound really good. Other than the combat music in all of the locations, I have no idea why they chose that specific combat music, but if you focus on it too much, you're gonna go crazy. In the second place on today's list, and it hurts me to put it in the second place and not the first, is Hammerlock and Wainwright's Wedding: Guns, Love and Tentacles. It's one of the most fun DLCs I've played in any of the Borderlands games. It's really unique with a lot of potential, and they used that potential. They added a ton of new enemies, a ton of new loot. They added the Anarchy, which is a reference to Gage from Borderlands 2. And she is in the DLC as well, so you're gonna meet her. She doesn't have a big role to play in the DLC, but she is there and it's fun to see her as always. And the loot is really good. Mostly people use the Anarchy from this DLC and the Old God Shield. Other than that, people don't use the loot that much, but it's always fun to find the loot in this DLC. It's all unique. The story is simple and straightforward. You're gonna finish it in about 8 hours. The characters are fun to talk to and interact with, especially Bloodtooth, who is the host of the Lodge, which is the main hub of the DLC. It's a really fun place to go back to and look around and find all the secrets it has. It has crew challenges, just like any other DLC, and like the main game itself. The characters, mainly the villains, are fun to go up against. They're not too annoying like the Calypso twins. They don't come as close to Handsome Jack as I would like them to, but they are fun to go up against. My one and major problem with the DLC is the bosses that you're gonna fight. There are about 4 bosses that you're gonna fight, main story bosses. They're all fun the first time, but the second time they get a little more annoying. Most of them have immunity faces, and they're not as much fun to farm as other bosses in the game. But they are fun to look at and to interact with and to experience fighting them for the first time. And also the loot that you get from them, you can get it from world drops mostly, so it's not gonna be too hard to get it. Except the Old God shield, which is really a great shield, people still use it, and it's very useful. But without any doubt, the most fun thing in this DLC is the new enemies. The cultists are one of the most fun factions to go up against. Their dialogue is very funny and most of them are unique in a way. They have different ways to fight and different styles and different weapons they use, and it's really fun to fight them. We have also the wolves, there are types of them, so it's not gonna be just one type of wolf. So it's also a faction, and it's also fun to fight them. And we have those floating bugs and other ground-based bugs. So we have 4 new factions to fight. Well, 3 if you want to count the bugs as one faction. And that's basically more than the first DLC and the 4th DLC combined. So you understand why I love this DLC. I always look for more stuff to fight and more unique enemies and more unique encounters to be in this game. I can spend all day here talking about this DLC and why it's one of my favorite DLCs for any of the Borderlands games, but this video is already long enough, so I'm just gonna say, if you're looking for a story DLC, this one is for you. You probably guessed what the last DLC is in the number 1, so if you're looking for something with a story and not that much endgame stuff, get this DLC. Without any doubt, it's the most fun story-based DLC in the game. And in the first place, you probably guessed it, is the new Arms Race game mode. It's the last DLC that we got right now, the 5th DLC. We have the new arms race with it and the new skill trees, and that's mainly the reason that I have it in the first place. I really wanted to put the Guns, Love and Tentacles DLC in the first place, but I just can't ignore how much replayability the new skill trees add to the game. It means that you can play the game again with new skills, new builds, and keep making new builds with more combinations with each one of the characters. It just adds a crazy amount of replayability. The new Arms Race game mode isn't that bad, it's really fun, but after you get all the loot that you want, you're not gonna have a reason to come back to it unless they do special events or add special enemies, which I'm really hopeful that they do. You're not gonna have a reason to come back to the Arms Race game mode. But still, the new skill trees add so much replayability that even with how lackluster Arms Race is, I just had to put this DLC in the first place. They add new skills for each one of the Vault Hunters with new skill trees, and you can make new builds like I've said, and it adds a ton of replayability. As you've probably guessed, this DLC doesn't have a story mode or any kind of story progression for the series. It just adds a new location with 2 new hosts, which are 2 Vault Hunters from Borderlands 2, Axton and Salvador. Axton was my favorite Vault Hunter in Borderlands 2, he was my main for years, so I'm really happy to see him come back. But there is no story for this DLC. They just basically take you to this arena, drop you, and you have to collect loot and fight a boss in the end and get your loot out. You can look up, there are a lot of guides for how to play this game mode if you wanna know specifically about Arms Race. Even I made a video about it, it's on the channel, you can check it out. But this DLC, like I've said, adds the arms race and the skill trees, which are 2 things that add a lot of replayability to the game. And just thinking about all the potential that this DLC has, it's really exciting to look forward to what Gearbox is gonna do with it. A lot of the community love this DLC, people really seem to embrace it, they give it great reviews, and I think Gearbox is really happy with that. So it's really exciting to look forward to what they're gonna add to it, maybe a new boss, maybe new enemies, maybe a new location even. But I think it's gonna take them too much time to develop a new location, so maybe that is less likely to happen. But still, they are able to add new bosses and new enemies, and special events. Maybe we will have a Christmas event, a Mercenary Days event in the Arms Race game mode. and that's a really great thing that we have something with this much potential in the game. But as of right now, the main reason you're gonna have to buy the 5th DLC is the new skill trees. It's not worth it to get the DLC only for Arms Race, but it is worth it to get it only for the skill trees, because like I've said, they add a ton of replayability. But to sum it all up, I just want to say this game has a lot of content to play with a lot of DLCs. As you've probably guessed, I can talk about these DLCs for hours without getting bored and without explaining all the stuff that you can get in them. So if you want to see standalone reviews for each one of the DLCs, let me know. I'm really excited to do that. I love doing reviews for specific parts of games. My main point here is that even though if you buy the last DLC, for example the 4th one, which is my least favorite, you're still gonna be good. It's gonna add a lot of content. So just because it's in the 5th place, it doesn't mean that it's bad, and if you buy it then it's a bad choice. No, it's still a good choice. And finally, I just want to say thank you all for watching my videos and supporting the channel. It takes time to do these videos. I know this one was less edited and more just talk and more rambling. I'm sorry about that. I just didn't have time to copy and edit it all together like I do with the other videos. But still, I'm really glad that I finished it and I have my reviews for the DLCs out. If you want to hear about more reviews and you have more ideas for me to talk about, or you just want to hear my opinion about specific stuff, let me know down in the comments. So if you enjoyed the video, consider liking and sharing it. It really helps the channel. And if you really liked it, consider subscribing. I always upload Borderlands videos, sometimes other videos, but mainly Borderlands. You can follow me on Twitter, the link is down below in the description to stay up to date with the channel. And as always, thank you for watching and have a nice day.